Welcome to the Week 9 edition of the Thursday Night Recap and News episode of the Fantasy Football Brothers podcast. My name is Blake, and I'm joined by my brother Carson. We're ready to get into it. Carson, what were your main takeaways from the Jets losing, yet again, to the Colts?
Yeah, so I saw the score of this game, I think probably the start of the fourth quarter, and it looked a lot worse than the final score. I see right here that the Jets scored 14 points in the fourth quarter, so that made it a little bit closer at the end, but it was still obviously a comfortable win for the Colts. Something that's disappointing. Go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt, but you know what they say about fantasy points, whether it's in a competitive game or a blowout, they all count the same.
Exactly. There were plenty of fantasy points to go around on both sides. It was a very high-scoring game, to be honest. And I also saw that, I don't know if you're aware of Scoregamis, but I follow this Twitter account that basically announces if a score is unique to any score in the history of the NFL. And so basically what I'm trying to say is that this is the first 30 to 45 game ever. So I guess it's a weird score.
Yeah, I was familiar with the concept, but I guess it's novel, sure.
Yeah, it's interesting. But something that's disappointing is, we didn't get to see Mike White have another full game because he suffered an injury. Do you have any, details on that? I just saw that, obviously he got injured.
Yeah, it was a forearm injury, and I want to say that it was contact. I think he hit it on an opposing player's helmet, probably. But not necessarily any updates on that right now. They do have an extra few days before their next game on Sunday, so I think that it's possible that he's in a good position to be in good shape for that game, or Zach Wilson, or we saw Josh Johnson even do it. So
yeah, he did well.
My main takeaway from this is that I think they might have, and I don't want to write him off too soon, but both of your backups are outperforming your draft pick. That's kind of a bad look.
Yeah, especially for a team that has no weapons. It's probably just purely their talent, and that just shows that Zach Wilson does not have as much talent as these guys. But they both have more experience, just because they're older. Not much NFL starting experience, but I don't know, that plays something into it. But you definitely would prefer your first round pick rookie to, start making a turn. He's played 7 games. The guy injured in week 7, right? So, and he doesn't seem to have been improving, and both these guys stepped in and did very well. So that is concerning for what they use in the draft for their draft capital.
Yeah, and Josh Johnson would have had a better game, QB passer rating, if the last play of the game for the Jets was a tipped interception, off of a D lineman. So it was he would have had I think it was 3 touchdowns, right? 3 touchdown game with no interceptions. Yeah, that would have made his day look even better. But regardless, he had a great day filling in for Mike White. 317 yards, 3 passing touchdowns on 27 for 41. And the Colts are not they're not a bad defense despite letting the Jets score 30 points on them.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of telling of their potential future quarterback situation.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. And since they were pretty much playing from behind the entire time, they had to throw a lot. They had 52 pass attempts across Josh Johnson and Mike White, only 21 carries. Michael Carter had he had fine rushing day, but he got most of his work through the air. Actually, no, he only had 1 catch, but it was 37 yards, so that helped his fantasy value. But still not a huge performance for someone who did amazing in week 8.
And it's not really indicative of how he's been getting his points recently, because he has been more involved in the passing game, but for some reason they couldn't figure it out with him.
Yeah,
someone who did have it figured out in the passing game, though, was Elijah Moore. Let's talk about him.
Yeah, 7 receptions for 84 yards and 2 touchdowns. I think he's a rookie, and his last week, week 8, was his first receiving touchdown of the season, I think, and he had 2 in this game. So that's definitely interesting.
Yeah, what do you make of that with Corey Davis being inactive?
Yeah, that probably has an effect. I think that Elijah Moore has put his foot in the door for, always having a presence in this offense, whatever that means for the Jets offense. But I guess since that statistic is true, Zach Wilson hasn't thrown a passing touchdown to him, which is interesting. Zach Wilson probably. I've heard things saying that like they're relying more heavily on Corey Davis and Jamison Crowder because they're veterans and that's easier for Zach Wilson to deal with than just throwing to another rookie. I don't know if maybe that, obviously Elijah Moore is getting more experience, and I don't know, they won't have to keep Zach Wilson on a crutch with the veterans, and I don't know, but it's hard to predict this Jets offense for sure.
Well, could you elaborate a little bit more on what you mean by that? Because I'm not, like, what do you mean, who's relying on veterans?
Oh, I've just heard that, like, Elijah Moore, I'm pretty sure they did a pretty high draft pick for him, but he wasn't getting involved with the offense as much as you'd think he would, just because the two veterans, Corey Davis and Crowder, were pretty much getting the most of Zach Wilson's targets, and I think Moore was kind of almost cut out of the picture.
I think it's more indicative of Zach Wilson's, like, lack of competence at the position right now.
Yeah.
Because, honestly, because we're seeing that players like Elijah Moore are starting to emerge whenever there's a different quarterback playing for the Jets. I mean, I think that's a good indication that it might not be Moore's fault. It might be Wilson.
Yeah. No, I agree. On that. This allowed him, even though I don't know how to make sense of a Moore getting so much more work in this offense in Wilson's absence, but it'll be interesting to see what happens when they return. I mean, let's see.
We do need to keep in mind Corey Davis was out, so
yes.
We'll see. I mean, it reminds me of the Dolphins situation, which we'll get to in a bit, but otherwise, I mean, obviously the Jets still lost, but I feel so much better with one of these other quarterbacks playing, and that says a lot considering that you spent the number 2 pick on Zach Wilson.
Yeah, it's definitely probably disappointing for, Jets fans to see them yet again not pick a good quarterback. I guess we can talk about the Colts now, more specifically.
Yeah, briefly. I mean, let's talk about the new number 1 running back in fantasy, Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah, and I read yesterday that 78-yard run last night was even faster than Derrick Henry's run against the Bills as the fastest ball carrier run this season.
Well, I mean, he certainly is looking the part of the new number 1 fantasy running back, like I said.
And it's crazy. I mean, he ended last season so strong, his rookie season, and then this season he started, and you're, like, disappointed with where you drafted him, and now he just, has broken out again, but it's just more of the same as how he left last season. I guess he just needed to find his stride again.
Yeah, it's been really impressive, the stretch that he's been on. This game, 19 carries for 172 yards and 2 touchdowns, as well as
2 receptions for 2
catches. Yep, 2 catches for 28 yards.
So 200 total yards. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, that's Christian McCaffrey. That's what people are missing right now.
Exactly. And then Wentz had an efficient day that was probably good for fantasy. I mean, he didn't have to throw a whole lot because of Taylor getting runs like that.
Just around 24 points. I think he was at 30 in our league.
Yeah. Yes, that is true. And then Michael Pittman didn't get a ton of targets, but very efficient. 5 receptions, 64 yards, and a touchdown. I was happy with his performance as someone who started him. And I'm just, he was wide receiver 11 going into this game, and I think now he's like wide receiver 5, but obviously that's inflated because they had an extra game. But it's just ridiculous to see that he's like nearing wide receiver 1 numbers for his ranking.
I think it's safe that he's going to finish inside the top 15. You have to keep in mind that their bye week is week 14, which is the last bye week. Yes. And they have played this extra game. So obviously, yes, his numbers are inflated, but the reality is that he continues to get targeted. He continues to catch touchdowns. I think that, we talked about T.Y. Hilton before. He's kind of been unreliable coming back from injury, and then he's already out again. So I think that, Michael Pittman is that guy in this offense, and Carson Wentz is improving, or at least being consistent at a fantasy perspective. So I think there's a lot of good things going on this team.
Yeah. As far as, people that I guess you could say, are new to fantasy and see Nyheim Hines have this day. I don't buy it. He just does this every once in a while.
Oh yeah, this is I mean, we've talked about this in the past, I believe, but this is a typical Nyheim Hines breakout game. But then I believe I heard a statistic that he had in the previous 5 games, it was like less than 15 points total. So that's kind of what you can expect, is that he'll break out for a really big game. And it is important to note that Marlon Mack was a healthy scratch. Yeah, so here are his previous 5 games: 1.1, 1.8, 3.2, 2.2, 6.4. So, yeah, you can't trust him.
Yeah.
is the takeaway.
You can't trust him. This is not new for him, even if this is new to you, seeing this stat line. And as far as anything else, something that's interesting, is Danny Pinter a tight end? He doesn't even have like a fantasy
he's
profile.
A lineman.
Okay, so how did he catch a touchdown?
I'm assuming that he lined up as eligible, because otherwise I don't think he could have caught the ball on the play. But it was kind of like a tight end delay, where he was lined up as a blocker, obviously, and then no one was guarding him, and he just kind of broke off to the left side of the end zone, and Wentz found him just completely isolated, caught a touchdown, and that was it.
Yeah, so other than Pittman, the players that caught touchdowns from Wentz were Pinter for 2 yards and Jack Doyle for 1 yard, and that was his only reception.
Yeah, that was very reminiscent of a Kansas City Chiefs goal line play, because it was literally a shovel pass off of a handoff.
Oh, that's interesting.
It was like a play action into a shovel pass to Doyle. So it was very Kansas City-esque.
Yeah. Well, that's all I got with all this. You got anything else to add before we move on to just general fantasy news?
No, I think we can move on from this, and there are quite a few things that we can talk about. I mean, let's start with Odell Beckham Jr.
Yes.
How he's officially no longer a Brown, but he has not been picked up from any teams off of waivers as of this recording. So I'll ask you, I think there's a lot of drama surrounding OBJ and the Browns organization right now, because do you know the story that went into this?
I don't know. I remember hearing about it last season, but I don't know the specifics. I know that he literally is not speaking with the coach.
Okay, well, what recently happened was OBJ's dad posted on social media basically a clip showing Odell Beckham open and Baker Mayfield not passing to him, and there's a lot of talk around OBJ is a wide receiver 1. He's just not getting the looks. He's not, this team's holding him back kind of thing.
Yeah.
So the idea, I guess, that it's in OBJ's head that he can do better elsewhere, and so he's out. And so I want to ask you, where's your ideal situation of him landing, do you think?
Ideal situation. So I know it's a waiver system that basically works like the fantasy waivers, right? Just inverse of the standings, I think, is how it works. I was trying to find the list. I know the Lions are the top of it, but ideal, I don't know, honestly. I mean, if he goes... I read something, I saw something interesting, not that Tyrell Williams really has any value, but the Lions just waived him, even though he was on IR, so it's I don't know, they're making room for OBJ, I have no clue. And I also saw something about Von Miller trying to convince him to go to the Rams. That would be way bigger. So I don't have a particular team in mind. I think he will, I would be inclined to trust that he'll have more value wherever he ends up, almost no matter what.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably almost a guarantee, considering how low his ceiling was on the Browns.
Yeah.
But I just meant more from a, hypothetical, what would be the most exciting place for you to see him go? I think that places obviously Tampa Bay, but Green Bay, the Chiefs, the Rams would be good.
Cardinals.
Yeah. Add one more mouth to that offense. I mean, there's a lot of... I mean, he has the opportunity to go to a competitor, which is exciting, and with a better quarterback situation. I mean, I don't know. I think, whenever you are the manager of OBJ in fantasy, obviously you have to hold on and to see where he ends up. But I think that, on hype alone, his trade value has gone like through the roof in this recent news, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, I just looked this up because I was curious. He was born in Baton Rouge, went to LSU. The only Louisiana team is the Saints, and that honestly would be a good fit.
Yeah, and I've heard the Saints are a realistic option considering they, recently lost Michael Thomas for the season.
I've also heard like Ravens. So I mean, you hear every team because there's really nothing that's actually pointing towards a specific team at this moment. But it will definitely be interesting to see where he ends up. Is it likely that he gets signed? Maybe not before this Sunday, but before next.
I'm not really sure. I don't know how the waivers system works in the NFL. But the other thing is that Cleveland did him the favor of restructuring his contract in order to make him more available on waiver or more accessible on waivers, we'll say. So. Yeah. I mean, it's an interesting story regardless because I think I believe he's still a talented player. I can't imagine that he's just completely fallen off, but he has been underwhelming on Cleveland's offense.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he's 29. Like, we're not talking about someone that should be past their prime. We're talking about someone who should be in their prime.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting. And I think it's also weird that the Browns didn't try to make a trade. And I don't know the details behind that, but they got nothing out of it.
The thing that happened on November 2nd was the head coach was saying, we believe that Odell Beckham Jr. has a future on this team. And, I mean, what a turnaround that, a day later or 2 days later, he's completely burning his bridges and he's just he's out, and there's a report saying he's very likely played his final game as a Brown. It's just it's so bizarre, and the timing is weird. I agree with that, but yeah, it's an interesting story.
Yeah, for sure. It'll be interesting to see where he goes.
Yeah, so let's talk about DeVante Parker, who recently had a setback with his hamstring, and he's been placed on IR.
Yeah, that's really disappointing, considering wasn't last week his first week back from what he was dealing with? I guess the same injury.
Yeah, I believe so.
And he had a really good game.
And he did have a really good game. I was saying that, in our previous episode, I was saying that I like him more than Jalen Waddle. I think he's the more reliable pass catcher in that offense.
Yeah. So that's definitely disappointing. So he'll be out for at least 3 weeks. And I don't know when the Dolphins' bye is, but...
I think they're also week 14. I think that's true. Yeah, let me check that real quick.
Yeah, you can check that. I mean, that's definitely a loss for that offense.
Yeah, week 14
it probably helps Waddle and Gesicki's fantasy value because you saw what it did to them in this week 8 game when he came back, but it hurts that offense overall.
Agreed. Yeah, agreed. And not like they're really at risk of having a tough matchup this week because it's the Texans, but yeah, I mean, for the next few weeks, as long as he's out, you can continue to rely on Jalen Waddle and Mike Gesicki, I believe, in that offense. We've talked about that, and no news on Will Fuller yet, but I mean, once he gets back in the offense, maybe we reconsider that. But at this point, it's those two guys.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's Will Fuller, I heard on Monday that he would not practice this week, and he has not. So I think they were hoping he'd practice this week, so that's a little disappointing. But I read something that they're planning on him playing this season, so that's wildly optimistic.
Oh, well, I mean, it's just a finger injury.
I know.
Maybe he has to catch the ball, but...
That's true.
Just catch it with the other hand.
It also just seems like an injury that's... You'd think it'd be easier... I'm just speculating, obviously, but you'd think it'd be easier...
Not a doctor.
Yeah, not a doctor. You'd think it'd be easier to put a timeline on. Like, it's not like re-aggravating a pulled muscle,
it's not a finger. I'm not sure. I mean, it's definitely not the same part of the body, but I think we're speculating a little bit too much. We should probably move on.
Yeah, agreed.
All right, so in other injury news, Saquon Barkley ankle and Sterling Shepard quad have both been ruled out for this week's game. I mean, man, if you drafted Saquon in the first round, I feel for you. That's
Yeah.
tough.
Yeah, it's disappointing, and I was hearing a lot of fantasy analysts like not wanting to draft him at that like number 6 position or mid first round because of
Yeah.
all the injury concerns, and it's unfortunate that that was correct. But if you avoided him, lucky you, and if you got him for what you thought was going to be a good value, it obviously wasn't, and that's just disappointing. This entire Giants team is just like the injury report. I think they could rebrand for this season.
Yeah, they're definitely banged up.
Yeah, and that's tough. Is there any updates on like you said Shepard and Saquon?
Yeah, those are the two that have officially been ruled out that are fantasy relevant.
So Galladay is still a maybe, and Tony is still a maybe. I guess Tony should be fine. Galladay's probably
as
just a
far as
maybe.
as far as I know, I think that I believe that is the case. Galladay is, I think, unlikely though.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about your Denver Broncos. Noah Fant inactive due to COVID-19. How do you think that affects their offense, and do you have any faith? I'm going to give this name a shot just for fun.
Oh, God.
Albert
I know.
Okwuegbunam.
I don't have much faith in Albert. I mean, I'm sure he'll get a few targets, do something with them. But Fant gets relatively heavily targeted in this offense. I honestly think that this will probably be good for Judy and Sutton. I would think they're facing the Cowboys, and they're probably going to pass more. But, yeah,
Well, yeah, because
I don't know
presumably they're going to be behind. I think
Yes.
they're going to be behind to the Cowboys pretty realistically.
Agreed. I just, I don't think it hurts the other pass catchers too much. They'll get more targets.
No, it should help. Yeah, it should help.
Yeah, but it also balances out that now the Cowboys have less weapons to worry about. So with wide receivers, it's a lot more complex when one person goes down than with a running back, for example.
Mm-hmm. Well, here's my thought on it. I mean, so Albert was getting 2 to 3 targets a game when Fant was healthy. I think that there's an opportunity, and he's got a touchdown on the season, so I think there's an opportunity for him to kind of have a semi-respectable outing, especially at the tight end position. But I think that I'm kind of leaning towards him in DFS, and
Yeah,
we'll talk
I was
about
gonna
that.
say he could definitely be a sneaky DFS play.
I mean, he's just crazy cheap. He's $2,600, and I know that people aren't here to listen about that, but that just was on my mind, so I figured I'd mention it.
Yeah, we'll talk more about him probably.
Yeah, let's transition to another tight end. 49ers are looking to activate George Kittle off of IR, making him eligible to play on Sunday. So I think I asked you this in the last episode, but what's your confidence level in firing him up in your lineup if you have him in a tight end league?
Yeah, I mean, we did talk about this on the Thursday episode, but if you got lucky, because obviously you paid high to get him as your tight end in a tight end league, and if you got lucky, getting a replacement off the waivers that you're confident with, I wouldn't be opposed to you, benching Kittle for this week. But like we said, he's got to turn around his season. He's got too much talent. He just, it'd be ridiculous if he doesn't improve from the start of his season. But I would not be opposed to you resting him in this game. Divisional matchup about the Cardinals, but it's not even really about that. It's just like I want to see him produce at Kittle levels or close to Kittle levels before you trust him. But if you have a tight end that you're not confident in, you'll probably be fine playing him. I just find it hard to believe that he wouldn't have a somewhat safe floor for a tight end.
Yeah, I feel you on that. On that same team, along those same lines, Deebo Samuel did participate today in practice, but he's worse for the wear this week than he was last week at this time. So he's questionable going into Sunday's matchup, but I mean, that's got to make you a little bit nervous. I mean, maybe that opens the door for Kittle to have a big game, because usually when Kittle's good, he's targeted a lot and he's a great run after the catch guy.
Or who knows? Watch this. The game kill comes back as the game Ayuk explodes. You never know.
Yeah, there's a lot of question marks on that offense for sure at this moment.
Definitely weird. Oh, I mean, we've already been talking about this for a bit. Kyler Murray is a game time decision. So if you have Kyler Murray, I'd be looking for replacements. I personally went for Taysom Hill, but he is not going to be the starter, even though he'll be playing this week. So, I had to go pivot for another option. But
yeah, I think so. Probably your best option, and I know it's kind of hindsight now, but I think there is a lot of hype around Carson Wentz, and obviously he had a good game. So hopefully, if you're worried about Kyler Murray, maybe you played Carson Wentz. Otherwise, there are other options out there. I wouldn't trust Trevor Siemian with that job, but
I just Taysom Hill. If you are new to fantasy, he's just such a unique player that he has such a good floor when he's starting at quarterback, just because of what they drop for him for plays with his rushing abilities and all that. And they're facing Atlanta, so it would have been a good matchup. But
yeah, if you've listened to a few of our shows before, I've referenced Taysom Hill being Sean Payton's son, because no matter what, he finds a way to get him involved in the offense. So that's kind of the motivation behind that nickname.
It's really funny. I personally picked up Jordan Love. I think that's his first name, Jordan.
Yeah, Jordan Love.
Replacing Aaron Rodgers because he tested positive for COVID, and he'll be out against the Chiefs because it's not a horrible matchup against the Chiefs, and also because that game is the exact same time as the Cardinals game. That's also why I had that in mind.
Yeah, that's smart. But Aaron Rodgers is unvaccinated, which means that his first available return will be the following Saturday, so one game prior to their next game. He'll be going on no practice. But, I mean, Aaron Rodgers is one of those guys that doesn't really need to practice in order to play at a high level. So I think that, I mean, and I guess it does depend a little bit on how Jordan Love does, but do you know off the top of your head who they play next week?
I don't. I just know this week's Chiefs. I don't know next week for sure.
Okay, let me find that out real quick. But, I mean, the idea being that if he is eligible to play, I do expect Rodgers to be available for that next game.
Yeah, agreed. I definitely wasn't looking for Jordan Love as a long-term option, but as a plug-in for Kyler, or just quarterbacks that will most likely only be injured this week or be out this week or for a short period of time, he's probably a decent option, and he should be available in almost every league.
So their next matchup is the Seahawks, and hopefully Russell Wilson will be back. He's posted on social media that he's ready to get back out there. Basically, it was something along the lines of the pin, referencing the pin that was placed in his finger. It was something like, the pin is no longer in, it's time to win, something like that.
Nice, that's nice, and that helps that offense a lot. But as far as a matchup, if Jordan Love was to play again, that's probably another decent matchup for a quarterback.
Yeah, I would agree with that. We saw, I mean, not that it was a high-scoring game, but we saw Winston do somewhat okay in that matchup previously.
I just know that they're definitely struggling against the pass this season. No longer the Legion boom.
Right. And then we referenced it a little bit, but the Falcons have placed Calvin Ridley on the reserve list, which guarantees, no matter his mental health situation, that he will be missing the next 3 games. I think the expectation was that he would be gone for an extended period of time. I'm sure that the Falcons made this decision just to, I guess they open up availability for other players to be moved around, but that is the reality of the situation, that no matter what happens with him personally, he is guaranteed to miss at least the next 3.
Yeah, I mean, part of me at first, I thought that was I felt a little bit bad for that move for Ridley. I feel bad for Ridley overall, but I'd probably take some pressure off of him about feeling like he needs to come back in a shorter period of time. But obviously, tactically, it helps the team for them to do that so they can free up more space, and it also gives him 3 weeks. But I don't know. It's so hard to tell, because I don't even think he could tell you when he'd be coming back to the football field.
Yeah, it's an interesting situation to monitor, but we hope that he gets well soon.
Yeah, for sure.
I think we can maybe do this as our last one, but I guess there's two stories regarding, or really three, but it's about Christian McCaffrey, David Montgomery, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. They are all close to a return, but I think the most realistic one of playing this week is McCaffrey, and then CEH and David Montgomery are just getting reintroduced to the practice situation.
Yeah, and I also I agree that McCaffrey's the most likely out of those three, and I've also read that McCaffrey will be on a quote limited snap count if active. But that, in my opinion, from when they've said that to to big fantasy players or just McCaffrey in particular in the past, that almost means nothing. I just don't feel like they ever. I mean, obviously they work in the backup a little bit more, but he's still getting a workload that is startable. Like, I don't think you read that and think you can't start him. Do you agree with that?
With who?
With McCaffrey.
That if he comes back
on a limited snap count.
Oh, I think you still start him. I mean,
yeah.
I'm reading right here that Matt Rule said it would be less than 40 or 50 snaps. So that I think that's probably still. I mean, what Christian McCaffrey can do with 39-ish snaps is a lot better than what a lot of backup running backs can do. So in terms of who you would fill in for him. So I think that, if Christian McCaffrey plays, I think you start him and you just have that lowered expectation considering the reduced workload.
Agreed. So does that wrap it up for fantasy news?
Yeah, I'll do a quick refresh, and then I think that's pretty much it. Yeah, that's all I got right now, so we can go ahead and wrap it up here. Thank you all for listening. This was kind of a short episode, but I mean, when there's not a lot of news to cover and the Thursday night game is a blowout, it's pretty much all we have to talk about. So We'll be transitioning to DFS. We'll have that out the same day as this. So I hope you guys enjoyed. For Carson and I, thanks for listening. Bye-bye.